Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. Today we're going to try to unlock some family secrets.
Ooh, sounds interesting.
Yeah, we're talking about the Talavera family.
Okay.
And get this, we're going to try to trace them all the way back to 13th century Spain. I
Wow.
know, right?
That's a long way back.
It is. We've got all kinds of sources too. We've got blog posts, research notes, even strategies from a genealogy project to kind of help us sift through everything.
That's amazing. So we're not just getting like the finished story, we're actually getting to see how the research was done.
Exactly. It's like a behind-the-scenes look at a historical mystery novel.
I like that.
Yeah, and the researcher in this case is Dr. Jose Talavera Falcon.
Okay.
And he's actually the author of all of the sources that we're going to be looking at today.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so we're really getting it right from the source.
So is his blog like our main source then?
Pretty much. Yeah, it's a treasure trove of information. He's got posts about his strategy, sources, like progress reports. He even has some personal reflections in a section called Ideas.
That's really cool. So we're really going to get to see his process as it happened.
Exactly, like right there in the trenches with him.
I love that. And speaking of his process, one thing that really stands out in one of his posts called Fuentes
Okay.
is how he uses like a seemingly insignificant secondary source to find this really crucial lead.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was a historian's book on Spanish migration patterns,
Okay.
and that pointed him to a specific archive in Seville.
Wow.
I know. And there he actually found a primary source, a handwritten letter mentioning the Talavera family leaving for the New World.
Wait a minute, a letter from the 1500s?
Yeah.
That's incredible. What kind of detail did it have? What did it actually reveal about the family? Like, what were they doing during that time?
It wasn't a super long letter, but it did mention a family of 4 Talaveras,
Okay.
parents and 2 young children. And they were setting sail for Peru.
Gotcha.
But get this, they weren't just like your average everyday migrants.
Okay.
They were artisans,
Wow.
tile makers specifically.
Oh, cool.
Which, connects to the Talavera pottery tradition that's still famous in Spain today.
Oh, yeah, of course. So they were carrying on a tradition across the ocean.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a whole other level of connection to their past.
Definitely.
I wonder if that artistic heritage kind of popped up later down the line in the family.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something we can look into as we go further into their journey.
Okay.
But for now, why don't we fast forward a few centuries
Okay.
to the 19th century?
Okay, sounds good.
And now we're seeing Talaveras fighting for Peruvian independence.
Wow. Imagine the risks they were taking.
I know, right? It was a really pivotal moment, not just for the family,
Right.
but for the whole region.
Yeah, and knowing what was at stake during those revolutions, their actions must have been so brave. It makes you think about the struggles they might have faced, the sacrifices they had to make.
Definitely.
I wonder, did Dr. Falcon uncover any personal accounts, like from those who were fighting for independence?
He did.
Really?
Yeah, he found this collection of letters between a Talavera soldier
Wow.
and his wife back home.
Oh, wow.
And it's honestly kind of heartbreaking to read about their fears, their hopes for the future.
I bet.
But it also gives this incredible window into the human side of a revolution, the anxieties of those directly involved.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those letters have got to be incredible primary sources. Did they reveal anything unexpected about that time?
Totally. In one letter, the soldier mentions that his unit was mostly artisans and craftsmen,
Oh, interesting.
not career soldiers.
Hmm.
So it really suggests that the fight for independence wasn't just about political ideals.
Right.
It was about protecting their way of life, their craft, a legacy.
That's fascinating. It totally reframes the family's motivation for joining the fight. I bet Dr. Falcon was thrilled with that discovery.
He was.
But I'm also curious, did he find any evidence of those artistic skills we talked about earlier? Like, were there any Talavera artists during this time?
Now, that is a great question, and it leads us right into some of the more interesting discoveries Dr. Falcon made.
So we've got these Talavera artisans heading to Peru, and then a few centuries later, their descendants are fighting for freedom, potentially to protect their craft and their heritage.
Right.
It's like their art is actually woven into their history.
Yeah.
I'm dying to know, did Dr. Falcon actually find any, Talavera artists in the family line?
Oh, he did.
He did.
And this is what his research takes a really fascinating turn.
Okay.
It seems like that artistic talent wasn't just a passing trait in the Talavera family.
Hmm.
Dr. Falcon found a whole lineage of painters, sculptors, even musicians.
No way, are you serious?
Yeah.
What kind of art did they create? Was it in that traditional Talavera style?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
While some family members did carry on that tradition of ceramics and tile work,
Uh-huh.
others branched out into different artistic expressions.
Okay.
For example, in the 18th century,
Okay.
he found records of a redacted fictional name from source material, Talavera, who was a really well-known portrait painter in Lima.
A portrait painter.
Yeah,
That's so cool. I wonder if any of those portraits still exist.
right.
Imagine being able to see the faces of those Talaveras from centuries past.
I know. And it gets even better.
Oh.
Dr. Falcon actually tracked down one of these portraits.
What?
It's this stunning depiction of a young woman thought to be the artist's daughter.
Wow.
And it's actually on display in a museum in Cusco.
Hold on. He found a painting by a Talavera ancestor.
He did.
Talk about connecting with the past. I am really starting to understand why Dr. Falcon is so passionate about this project. In his ideas section, he talks about that emotional connection you can develop with your ancestors through this kind of research.
Yeah,
It seems like he's really experiencing that firsthand.
he definitely is. In his blog, he describes seeing that portrait for the first time as like a profound experience. It was like he was looking into the eyes of his own history.
Wow.
And that brings us to a really important point.
Okay.
Genealogy isn't just about facts and dates.
Right.
It's about connecting with the human stories behind those facts.
Yeah. It's about bringing those ancestors to life, understanding their dreams, their struggles, their passions.
Exactly. And for the Talaveras, it's about appreciating their artistic spirit, how it's endured through generations, and how it was expressed in all these different ways.
Yeah. But as Dr. Falcon points out in his Informed to Progresso, this research wasn't always easy.
Right.
He did mention hitting a few brick walls.
He did.
What were some of the obstacles that he faced?
Well, one of the biggest challenges was just the lack of consistent record keeping in certain time periods.
Oh, yeah. I bet.
Imagine trying to track a family when births, deaths, and marriages weren't always reliably documented.
Oh, that sounds like a nightmare. How did he manage to overcome that?
He had to get creative.
Okay.
He started looking for alternative sources of information.
Okay.
Things like church records, property deeds, even personal letters and diaries.
Wow, so he had to really become like a historical detective,
Yeah.
piecing together those clues from all those unconventional sources.
Exactly.
But did he ever, worry about the accuracy of those less formal records?
He did, and that's where his dedication to that rigorous research ethic really comes in.
Okay.
He really carefully cross-referenced information,
Okay.
looked for, corroborating evidence, and always acknowledged any gaps or uncertainties in his findings.
That makes sense. I can't just accept everything you find at face value.
Nope.
Got to be critical, discerning.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, did this approach ever, lead him down any unexpected paths?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, while he was trying to verify the identity of that 18th century portrait painter,
Okay.
Dr. Falcon stumbled upon a really interesting side story. It seems that the painter had a brother who was a musician,
Oh, cool.
and not just any musician, he was a composer who wrote operas.
Wait, operas. Now that's a twist I did not see coming.
Right.
Are any of his compositions still around? Did he become famous?
Well, that's a story for our next segment.
Oh, okay.
Because as we delve deeper into the life of this Talavera composer,
Okay.
we're going to uncover a tale of intrigue, ambition, and a long-lost opera that's just waiting to be rediscovered.
Okay, so we've got Talavera painters, sculptors, we've even got a revolutionary soldier.
Right.
And now we're talking about a Talavera opera composer. This family is just overflowing with talent.
I know, right?
So what's the story with this composer and his lost opera?
Well, this is where Dr. Falcon's detective work really goes into overdrive.
Okay.
He found a brief mention of this composer,
Okay.
redacted fictional name from source material Talavera,
Okay.
in a historical music journal.
Okay.
And apparently, redacted was like a prodigy. He composed his first opera when he was only 20 years old.
Wow. 20.
Yeah.
I could barely write a grocery list at that age.
Right.
So what about this lost opera? What makes it so special?
Well, according to this journal, the opera was like a really bold departure from the traditional European style that was popular at the time.
Interesting.
Yeah, Redacted incorporated a lot of elements of indigenous Peruvian music and folklore into his work, and he created something truly unique.
So he was blending his family's artistic heritage with the cultural landscape of his home.
Exactly.
I can only imagine how innovative that must have sounded back then.
Right.
Did this fusion style catch on? Did he become famous?
That's the mystery. While Redacted did get some local recognition,
Okay.
his music never really reached a wider audience.
Okay.
And sadly, the scores for his most ambitious work, an opera called Redacted Fictional Opera Name from Source Material, vanished. sometime in the late 19th century.
So his masterpiece is just gone.
Pretty much, yeah.
What happened to it?
Well, that's what Dr. Falcon is trying to figure out.
Hmm.
He suspects that the score might be tucked away, in a private collection somewhere,
Okay.
or maybe even lost in some forgotten archive.
It's like a whole other mystery within a mystery.
Right.
And that's what's so cool about this deep dive. It's not just us passively listening to history. We're actually part of this active search for, like, hidden truths.
Exactly.
And it makes you realize that history isn't, like, set in stone. There are still discoveries to be made, stories waiting to be told.
Absolutely.
I wonder if Dr. Falcon does find this lost opera. What will it tell us about the Talavera family?
Yeah, and what about the musical landscape of that time?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the beauty of research like this. It's just full of potential.
It is.
This lost opera could give us incredible insights into, like, the cultural fusion happening in Peru back then.
Yeah.
It could even challenge, what we think we know about how musical styles evolved in the Americas.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe this deep dive will inspire someone to go looking for those lost scores.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
It would. It would be incredible if Redacted's music could be heard again after all these years.
Yeah, it really would.
And that's really what Dr. Falcon hopes to achieve with his research.
Okay.
To encourage others to look into their own family histories,
Yeah.
to uncover those hidden stories, and to appreciate just how rich and complex the past really is.
It's been a wild ride exploring the Talavera family saga, right?
It has.
I mean, from tile makers to revolutionaries, from painters to a lost opera composer. It just goes to show that sometimes the most fascinating stories are hidden right in front of us.
They are, just waiting to be discovered.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what do you think is, like, the most important lesson listeners can take away from the Talavera story?
I think the biggest takeaway is that history isn't just about famous names and those, like, big events.
Yeah.
It's about the lives of everyday people, their struggles, their triumphs, their creative expressions.
Yeah. Yeah. And within those, like, seemingly ordinary lives,
Right.
you can find some pretty extraordinary stories.
You can. Stories of resilience and innovation, a connection to something much bigger than themselves.
That's a great way to put it. So to everyone listening, don't underestimate the power of your own family history.
Yeah.
You never know what you might find. And who knows, you might even uncover a hidden masterpiece along the way.
Happy sleuthing.